Hello, I'm Steve Lance, and thank you for joining us this evening. The verdict is in for former President Trump's New York civil fraud trial. A Manhattan judge today ordering Trump to pay $355 million in damages and barring him from serving in any top positions of his companies in New York, including his own, for 3 years. The decision came after a 2.5-month trial in which Trump was already found liable for falsifying his net worth on key financial statements to secure bank loans. The judge also slapping Trump's 2 adult sons, Eric and Don Jr., with more than $4 million each in penalties. Both sons also banned from running the company for 2 years. Trump's lawyers said they're looking to appeal the decision. And joining us now live to discuss this verdict is civil litigation attorney Jared Roberts. Jared, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course, Jared, how significant is this $365 million penalty imposed on the former president on his businesses in New York?
I mean, it's a significant ruling, and it's another case that shows why the American people are losing faith in our judicial system. The law is not being upheld fairly. We saw that the New York Attorney General ran her campaign on wanting to get Donald Trump, and that's exactly what she set out to do. Despite there being actual no wrongdoing, there being no victims here, this was a complete sham of a case, and the judge was willing to go along with it because, I mean, based on all the videos we saw, he loved having his name out there. He was smiling for the cameras. He looked forward to sticking it to President Trump. And so I do think that this case will ultimately be immediately appealed, overturned on appeal, but the ramifications, I don't think that the Attorney General or anyone on the left really thought through them. That if you're a conservative, why would you want to bring your business to New York when you know that you will be politically targeted simply for being a conservative? I think that this hurts them with tax income. It hurts them with losing employees in the state. I think that ultimately the case against President Trump will be overturned, but the ramifications of the decision will last much longer than that, and that many people now feel that New York is closed for business.
So, Jared, that's a good point. You mentioned in in your answer there that there were no victims in this case. So, tell us what you mean by that, and also if you could comment on the judge's comments as well, saying that the family didn't show any contrition or remorse.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I believe that even with the subject loans from the banks and everything, like the banks actually testified on the president's behalf. Nobody was actually harmed from any wrongdoing, and it's important to note that no wrongdoing even occurred. And the judge's conduct just goes to show that this case was never about applying the law. He never allowed President Trump to put on a fair trial, put on evidence to prove his case. Instead, this was a one-man show. It was obvious that the purpose of it was just to get President Trump. And honestly, I think that this is just another case of election interference that the Democrats are engaging in against President Trump, and that they know they can't beat him at the ballot box, so they're trying to do everything they can do right now to try to put him underwater with all of these court cases. And I truly believe the American people will see right through it.
You also mentioned previously that you expect a prompt appeal. How might this appeal process unfold following this verdict?
So yes, I believe that the president has great attorneys working on this case. I believe that they will promptly file their notice of appeal to the next level of the New York court system. At that point, I believe in New York it'll be a 3-panel judge system that will review whether or not the judge acted in abuse of discretion, whether or not he correctly upheld the law. And I think that they will ultimately overturn this decision just because this really had no basis in law. This is an extraordinary remedy that we've never really seen before. And it's just kind of the Donald Trump exception. They're willing to do it because it's President Trump, not because it's sound in law. And if you have some faith in the judiciary, I think that they will right this wrong and overturn the decision.
Now, given the outcome of this civil trial, do you anticipate any impact on the multiple ongoing criminal indictments that the former president is currently dealing with?
I mean, we know that it's tough for the president to get a fair trial in any of these blue states or blue jurisdictions. Right now, the president will be taking his immunity defense to the Supreme Court. I think there's some optimism that the Supreme Court could issue a favorable ruling. If not, the president has many defenses available to him. I think the First Amendment is a great defense. The fact that he told everyone to act peacefully and make your voices heard, but the key word there is peacefully. He didn't say go enter the Capitol, go riot. He said act peacefully and make your voice heard. And so he had a First Amendment right. He was giving a speech on a matter of public concern at that time. All of his speech that he was doing was within the bounds of his presidency. So I think that while it is tough for the president to get a fair trial in any of these jurisdictions, at the appellate level, I think we'll see a lot more success for the president as he's able to flesh out these legal arguments, and the left's arguments I think they'll fall apart when you actually look at what the law says.
Now, despite the substantial damages imposed, there is an observation, and it kind of goes along to the previous point made that there were no victims in this, that the banks involved seemed eager at the time to continue doing business with former president. Everybody made money. Everybody was, compensated, and the terms were met. So, how do you explain this apparent contradiction?
I think the contradiction just comes into that the legal system has an exception if your name is Donald Trump, that you don't necessarily get a fair shake, a fair bite at the apple, that there is two different types of justice in this country. There's one that the left gets and there's one that the right gets, and we're seeing this firsthand with President Trump, and we're also seeing it wherein the Biden administration is attacking political opponents all over the country. And so I think it just goes to show that the judge, he put on the black robe and he swore that he would uphold his duty to uphold the law, and instead he acted for political gain. And I think it's truly a shame that our judicial system has been politicized in this way, and that is why I have to hold out hope that our appellate system will right these wrongs, because there are certain actors in this country who are willing to just rip apart our judicial system because they're terrified that President Trump will be back in the White House in 2025.
And to your point, the amount that we're talking about here, $355 million, when you throw numbers around, sometimes it's hard to put them into perspective. Everybody thinks Trump is a billionaire, which he is, but $355 million is staggering. It's an historic amount. So how out of the norm, even for somebody like Trump in his businesses, is this amount? And do you believe there's evidence of bias against Trump in this trial because of it?
Yeah, this is an extraordinary amount. Even if you're a billionaire, as the president is, this is not scrap change. This is a lot of money. This is something that we've never really seen happen before. And I think that the reason we're seeing this happen now is because they are trying to just continue to throw President Trump under the bus. They're trying to drown him with legal fees, legal bills, fines, just because, as I've reiterated over and over, they are afraid that the poll numbers look great for him, and it looks like he is going to win at this point. And so at this point, they threw out a number in there that wasn't really sound in any law. Rather, it was a number that was thrown out because they are just trying to derail his campaign. And it's truly a shame what's happened.
Jared Roberts, really appreciate you joining us, sharing your perspective. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And the former president has responded to the verdict, calling it, quote, an un-American judgment against him, his family, and his business. He wrote in a statement saying the justice system in New York is, quote, under assault by partisan, deluded, biased judges and prosecutors. Trump added that the case has been reversed 4 times and will be reversed again. And next, right now, we're going to bring in Paul Kamenar. He's lead counsel at the National Legal and Policy Center for more legal analysis. Paul Kamenar, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me, Steve. My pleasure.
Of course, Paul. I mean, you've been watching this unfold throughout the day. You know, the verdict is in. What is your assessment?
Well, it's totally outrageous. I mean, I've been following this case from the beginning. And last year, the judge already ruled against Trump and the organization in terms of liability. So the hearings for the last month or so has only been on the amount of damages they were going to assess. And they started out with $250 million, and then a week or two ago, they ratcheted up to $370, so they ended up with $355 million. It's totally outrageous. I mean, like it was said, there was no victims here at all. And I don't know what's going on here. It really is despicable. And they also barred Trump from conducting business for 3 years, and his son Eric and Don Jr. for 2 years. They fined each of them $4 million apiece. So it's clear that this is just a vendetta to not only Donald Trump, but to his whole family.
Paul, what are your thoughts on the Attorney General there, Letitia James? She's on tape back in 2018 when she was campaigning for that position, saying that she was going to go after the former president. From an ethical standpoint, right there, it seems, you know, what do you make of it?
No, you're right. I mean, it's clear that she was out to get him, and it shows that this was politically motivated. And that's the same with the case in Georgia with Fani Willis going after Trump. She vowed to go after him. And none of this would be going on, by the way, if he were not running for president. None of these cases. So it's clear this has been politically motivated from the get-go. This New York case, very clearly it was. And their appeal, they have to file that within 30 days. And I think they have very good grounds not only to challenge the liability ruling, which was last year, but also to challenge the amount that they were assessing. I mean, they're saying that things were overvalued, but take, for example, Mar-a-Lago. They said that that was only worth 18 to 20-some million dollars. Give me a break. I mean, that's what 1 acre vacant lots go for down near the Mar-a-Lago compound. So he valued it half a billion, 500 million, or maybe up to $1 billion. And again, the whole thing is there were no victims. The banks do their own due diligence. That's done all the time in the real estate business. You know, the judge had these gratuitous remarks. He said, "Well, you're not a Bernie Madoff, but and it's a venial sin, but you were not contrite. You did not prostrate yourself before the court and say, I'm sorry, mea culpa." Well, why should you be sorry if you did nothing wrong? So the judge apparently was holding that against Donald Trump and the Trump organization.
So, Paul, starting back when we saw the raid on Mar-a-Lago, then we had the mugshot and many things in between, different civil cases and various indictments. Why do you think that we have seen former President Trump, I think unexpectedly to many, start to gain in the polls after these events?
Well, I think it's basically because the American public see this as a political vendetta by the Biden administration going after their lead opponent, and they think this is something that you might see in Venezuela or some third world country. And Americans are basically want a system of fairness, and they don't like this political retribution that's being carried out here. So he is gaining in the polls. And now they're hoping that at least there'll be some conviction here criminally. This was only a civil case, and it does tremendous monetary damage. but now they're hoping that they'll get a criminal case conviction on one of these cases, because there has been some polling that if Trump is criminally convicted, he'll lose 9 or 10 points on that, and that might allow Joe Biden to squeak by.
That was actually going to bring me to my next question for you, Paul, which is, he has not been convicted criminally, and there, like you said, there's a lot of political pundits and strategists out there that say once he is convicted, or if he is convicted, we should say, that will change the game, and some say that's why Nikki Haley is sticking in the race to potentially capitalize on that opportunity. Do you see that being the case, or could we wind up being surprised again if he is in fact convicted?
Well, if he is convicted on one of these cases, keep in mind that he has the right to appeal. Like right now, he was assessed these $355 million, but he's going to appeal that, and there's good grounds for appeal. So I think even if there is a conviction, that depending upon what counts were ruled on and what the evidence was and so forth, and assuming that these are done even before the election, then it should be that he's got a right to appeal, and that may soften any negative blowback from any conviction. And some of these trials I don't think will start before the election anyway. So the only one that's going first is the one by Alvin Bragg, and that case is the weakest of them all. And if he gets an acquittal there, watch his poll ratings go up for sure.
Yeah, it's really hard to keep track with all of the litigation taking place here. Some could have one effect, another. You don't know what's going to happen next. Some have said that everything that we're talking about right now is not surprising, but it is disturbing. Does this speak to a larger issue within our justice system?
Yeah, it certainly does. The complaint, and it's rightly made, that there's a dual system of justice here. If you're a Republican, the Justice Department goes after you with hammer and tongs. If you're a Democrat, they'll take it easy. They didn't go after Hillary Clinton on her destroying 33,000 emails. They're giving Joe Biden a pass for the classified documents that he had at his garage, saying, he's old, he's got a memory problem, and the jury might look too kindly on him. But that's not a reason not to prosecute. That's something maybe you go after for in terms of the sentence, if there's no mens rea can be shown that bad. So it is a dual system of justice, Steve, like you're indicating here, and it's terrible for our country to have this kind of lawfare that's going on.
Paul, do you see a way back to normalcy and tradition in our legal system? Especially when it comes to legal precedent, in issues that traditionally have been done or not done that factor into this discussion. We're now seeing, a Republican-led Congress initiating investigations. This seems to be spiraling into something that's uncharted territory that could be very dangerous.
Well, yeah. Obviously, you've got the dual system, not only in the Justice Department here, but as you said, up on the Hill, there is these factions, one and the other, fighting, and it is splitting the country apart. Is there a way back from this division? I certainly hope so, but it takes a leader to pull the country together. It takes our people in Congress and in the White House to not make this a partisan type of vendetta that's going on. So hopefully we can get back to some sense of normalcy here, but I'm not really hanging up any hope here, unfortunately.
I sure hope so. Paul Kamenar, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.